Number 10, Ons Jabeur. Number 9, Caroline Garcia. Number 8, Maria Sakkari. Number 7, Marketa Vondroushova. Number 6, Elina Svitolina. Number 5, Jessica Pegula. Number 4, Coco Gauff. Number 3, Aryna Sabalenka. Number 2, Elena Rybakina. And number 1, Iga Swiatek.
Ready. Play.
If it looks like I haven't slept for about 10 days, it's because I haven't slept for about 10 days. But good news is it'll be all over in about 6 days from now. And there'll be some European indoor tournaments to consider, and then a sort of mini American swing as well. Anyway, that is for February. Let's stick to the 22nd of January, where it is both in Europe, Latin America, and more importantly, Australia, where there's obviously been day 10, I think it was today, at the Australian. Was it day 9? I think it's day 9, actually.
Sunday plus 7 days plus Monday, day 9.
Yeah. Fourth round day, or the final day of the fourth round. And I've got in the headline, Hurkacz, Medvedev win sets up quarterfinal clash. It's because I wrote that about 6 hours ago. There has probably been other things going on, perhaps of more importance and even drama. But let's work our way back, as often is the case. And let's begin with a match I didn't see, which is Zheng Dodin. I did watch plenty of tennis, but this is actually a match that I didn't catch up on because I was doing other things. So what happened, Damien?
Yeah, I mean, that was always the risk. This is a bit like Alicia Park's style of tennis that Dodin brings to the court. But honestly, first and foremost, like, she actually wasn't getting the first strike in that much. Zheng was dominating a lot of the rallies. Dodin is like such an aggressive player. Off the ground, she basically, and also she has a pretty decent serve as well, but like off the ground, she just passed the ball, whatever wing, whatever position on the court. And here she actually wasn't that dominant over Zheng. I was expecting this to be a little more scrappy for Qin Wen, but I was just looking at some stats for her when the match was wrapping up, and like, you know, since Cincinnati, Zheng has only lost 5 matches, and they were to Iga Swiatek twice, Sabalenka, Rybakina, and Haddad Maia. And she's basically eliminated all the possible poor losses, and that's what's allowed her to make back-to-back slam quarterfinals as well. It doesn't mean that it wasn't easy. It doesn't mean that it was easy along the way. There was this one here in the third round against Yafan Wong, of course, and also the at the US Open. I think the third round as well was crucial against Lucia Bronzetti. But she's winning all of that now. Like, she's 20-5 since Cincinnati, if we want to count the Asian games, which I would want to count. I mean, I know some of these matches weren't necessarily at the level of, let's say, her usual opponents, but still, she played Lin Zhu and Alex Ayala there, for example. So I still want to count Asian games. So 25-5 along with that. And yeah, I mean, it's really so impressive. I think this is really the breakthrough, right? This is where we see her talent sort of blowing up the last few months, and now she gets an opportunity that's much better than it was at the US Open, because at the US Open she had to, of course, play. At the US Open she had to play against Aryna Sabalenka in the quarterfinals. Now she gets to play Kalinskaya, potentially in the semis, Yastremska or Noskova. This is really an opportunity as good as she's gotten so far. I don't know if she takes it, because all of these players are playing well. I mean, all of these players got to the quarterfinals and are actually in form. They've had some ridiculous performances along the way, but Zheng is like the most established of them all, if that makes sense. Like, probably Yastremska has had more time at the top before, you know, back in the day. Although actually by this point, actually Zheng has been with us like for like 2 years, let's say, at the very top of the sport. So actually Qin Wen might be even in that category, sort of outranking her, if you may. So this is really her sort of final to lose. I don't know if she's going to do it, but today it was a performance that sort of tells you she's not going to be as nervy as in round 3 every single round, which is good for her, because it felt to me like she's putting a lot of pressure on herself with all these, Nali talks and etc. Sort of thinking already about the 2014 title and maybe potentially doing it herself. But today she was much less tight. So that's good for her as well.
She's also maybe saving this poll to some extent, which is pretty much dead on its feet. And we'll soon find out, for those of you that don't know the results from the last 24 hours or so in Melbourne. Yeah, of course, the good news is that some of those big players that she's lost to are no longer in Melbourne and could have potentially been in her way at the semi-final stage, whether it be Rybakina, or was she going to meet Rybakina at the semis, or was she going to meet Rybakina potentially even before that? But certainly Swiatek was a potential semi-final opponent.
Yeah, I think it was a quarter. Yeah, a quarter with Rybakina potentially.
Which would have been a hell of a
Swiatek semi. Yeah.
And then obviously
Forefront Pegula was her like first higher seeded opponent seeded higher than her. Let's go.
So things have gradually opened up, but it is obviously a crazily open sector to the draw. Jose Morgado tweeted this, although I think I should say Jose Morgado in Portuguese. Tweet this is before Zheng's win over Dodin and Kalinskaya's over Paulini, which we'll also come to shortly. But yes, we've got a quarterfinal with Yastremska and Noskova. We'll talk about their matches as well, or lack of matches in a way, to some extent, with Noskova. But yeah, so now we've got Zheng against Kalinskaya. Is Zheng the favorite there?
Zheng is going to be the favorite in every match until the final. Is it a guaranteed win? Of course not, but she is going to be the favorite in every match until the final, yeah.
And it's going to be a new pressure for her because, okay, she's growing, and she's probably in 1 or 2 early rounds in 250s and 500s. She's obviously the favorite, but we're not really paying attention so much at that point. It's suddenly then when she's playing, Iga Swiatek at the United Cup or Iga Swiatek in Paris, where she obviously had some success in terms of at least winning a set and making a mark a couple of years ago. But now we are watching, and now we are maybe expecting. So it'll be interesting to see how she deals with it. But then today she did. By the way, regarding that result today, I mean, was Dodin spraying the ball around quite a bit, going for it a bit too much, and not quite landing the punches that she'd hoped?
It's her style, There's not much that she can really do about it. I mean, that's how she plays every single match. If it's not working out on the day, especially the opener, there were some absolutely wild misses. I think in the end, also, she only had like 3 or 4 winners the entire day, which for the day is just so rare because, her style is basically all about being the dominant player and getting all of these winners, but also unforced errors, of course, at the same time, because you cannot avoid it. But in the end, she only had like a few winners. So it was definitely a pretty poor showing from her as well.
This could be the Australian Open final on the screen here.
Could be,
yeah, because I know you fancy Krejcikova's chances pretty highly. Of course, Krejcikova will be playing later today. She wasn't in action.
Don't listen to him, guys. Don't listen to him.
It's a little bit of a back joke from a few hours ago with Vanch bigging up Krejcikova just because he happened to see her win the title in San Diego. So that's enough to.
The best shade is when the person who we are shading isn't here. That's the best shade. So yeah.
I mean, we're doing it behind his back, but it's soon there for him if he really wants to find it. And of course, you can find it on YouTube, Twitch, and all these other places where we're live right now, but also on the podcast. So for those of you that tune in as often as you can to this particular show, it is something that also goes out on a podcast. So if you ever miss it live and you want to get it as soon as possible, most of the time I upload it to iTunes and those other places, Spotify, etc., as soon as I possibly can after the show finishes. And that's when it does well. Of course, there are other occasions when I fall asleep and I don't upload it for another 6 hours. Or I think during Wimbledon last year, because there was actually an episode you were recording and I fell asleep during the recording of it, I didn't upload it until like lunchtime the next day, by which time it was very close to being out of date. Anyway, tangent and confused audience now in tune. Let's go to Zheng's opponent then in the next round, which is going to not be Jasmine Paolini. It is going to be Kalinskaya. Both you and I, occasionally we agree, often we don't. But this is an occasion where we did agree regarding this Kalinskaya Paolini match, because both of us, I think I went Kalinskaya in 3 sets, but I was fairly confident that Kalinskaya would emerge the winner. I found it easier to predict this match than some of the other women's matches, if not all of the women's matches today, just because I felt Paolini had a limit. I think Kalinskaya's form has been good, including a win over the woman on the screen on the left-hand side right now, the unbeatable Barbora Krejcikova, who's on a 2-week unbeaten streak at the moment, and that means 3 matches. After Kalinskaya beat her in Adelaide. I think that's the last time Barbora lost. And so I saw a few things from Kalinskaya in that tournament in Adelaide that gave me some confidence, and then a bit more during the Australian Open. And it was straight sets in the end, possibly even easier than I'd imagined. Thoughts on this particular encounter?
Yeah, I mean, such an underrated ball striker, many health issues along the way, but since the last 2 or 3 months, yeah, she's been amazing. She was one of the main sort of stars of the October-November WTA 125s, the title in Midland. I think she beat Parks in the semis, for example, so a pretty decent field. And also the final in Tampico, where she lost to Mina Bektas. But then this year, she, of course, starts playing major events right away, and she only loses to Kasatkina and Azarenka in the first couple of weeks. So I think it was pretty clear that Kalinskaya was going to be a threat here. She was actually due for a rematch against Kasatkina in the third round again, but Kasatkina ended up losing to Sloane Stephens. I thought that was a really just absurd performance from Kalinskaya, the way she lost the opening set. And then just started hitting bigger, more aggressive, but at the same time, like cutting down on the errors almost completely. I think she made like 5 or 6 unforced errors in the last 2 sets, despite basically being the dominant player in every single rally against Sloane. And that was just so incredible. I barely watched her much today against Paolini, but as you mentioned, like that was the one that I felt very confident about, which might actually sound a bit stupid given how quickly Zheng dispatched Dodin. But yeah, Dodin is just such an imposing player that you never really know. Maybe she has a ridiculous day at the office, but Kalinskaya, yeah, it was really the one match where it felt like her upside is just so much better than Paolini's, despite Jasmine's amazing form of late and like the high ranking that she managed to achieve. So I'm very happy to see this. I think we were sort of expecting a Zheng Raducanu in round 3, which would have been a bit of a perfect display of the type of ball striking that I enjoy, especially on the WTA side. Instead, I think Zheng Kalinskaya is a very good sort of second place for that. It's just that Kalinskaya, like for ages, she hadn't really done all that much until October. And I sort of forgot about how much I enjoy her game. So this is a quarterfinal I'm really looking forward to. It's not a given at all that Zheng is going to win, but she definitely is a slight favorite. However, yeah, both just absolutely... Well, I would say Kalinskaya is speaking out of her mind at the moment. Zheng is just sort of has improved to this standard, it seems.
A quick question and point, semi-related. It's certainly regarding the women anyway, and the Australian Open, which helps, from Matthew, and it's regarding Kostyuk and Coco's match coming up later on today. All 4 quarterfinals singles matches will be on the channel in the coming hours ahead. So, and I think Coco Gauff against Kostyuk, which is what his question's related to, is the first one up. So make sure you tune in for that. And it's regarding the head-to-head. It's just 1-0 in Gauff's favour. And they met in their previous encounter in Adelaide, so at least it was the same country, and it was a close one, 3 sets. Thanks to Google for that, plus the invention of copy and paste, which helped me provide the answer pretty quickly. But anyway, I won't dwell on that too much right now, because I want to stick with sort of the matches that took place. On the other sort of other quarter of the draw, we had Yastremska beating Azarenka. And this is a match that I am probably maybe even more familiar with than you are, Damien. I'm not sure at what point you woke up from deepest, darkest Poland and those deep, dark dreams that you have in deep, dark Poland. I was in bright and breezy Brazil. How about that? That's just off the cuff, that was. Bright and breezy Brazil. Some nice alliteration there.
But deepest, darkest Poland doesn't work because it's no PPP.
I know, DDP, yeah, deepest, darkest point. Yeah, but it doesn't matter. We'll worry about that some other day. Deepest, darkest. Can you move to Denmark? That might help. Whatever. So listen, I will come to your opinion first, and then I'll have plenty to say, I'm sure, in response. Can you sort of react? Some people might be surprised by the result. Straight sets, but just in general, the fact that Yastremska won the match. Did it surprise you, that result?
Not really. I mean, Diana is a weird story. Like after all these injuries and also the doping suspension that she had, of course, she was eventually cleared and her provisional suspension was lifted like immediately. But she never really returned to her previous standard, and I was kind of surprised by that always. Especially last year, I was able to watch her live in Kozerki at the WTA 125, which she won. So of course she did well there. She beat Zeynep Sonmez in the semis and Hriet Minen in the final. Really good final where she was just like dominated in the first set, and then just how heavy and how hard she hits on every single stroke really limited Minen's ability to attack. And I remember just thinking that, well, she was 21 in the world a few years ago. Like, what has changed? Like, what's really different about her? Where has that quality gone? And in fact, it never really felt like it was gone, but she struggled to sort of just break through, even return to the top 100, right? Then, of course, in the qualifying this week, she actually lost a set in every single match. And suddenly she's so clean in the main draw. But as I said, I don't think she's a worse player than when she was in 21st in the world. It's really just getting some confidence back and just getting on a bit of a hotter run, and then you throw it into like the full year on the main tour, and she probably holds up okay. I don't know if 21st in the world, maybe that's a bit much, but like she probably still is winning matches, getting to some later rounds. So was I surprised by this particular result? I thought that this is maybe even a worse matchup for Azarenka than Ostapenko right now, because of course against Ostapenko she was again like serve botting. Here, probably you see more of like the Azarenka's declining movement shine. I didn't see too much of this match. I know that you said that the serving was not as good as against Ostapenko for Vika, so that would also make sense. But I think with players like Yastremska and also with the sort of very even quality right now in the top half, there kind of aren't any shocks anymore on the table. Like if Yastremska makes the final, no one should really bat an eye, because this is literally how close the top half right now is. And as I think a couple of days ago in one of these shows said, like, I'm literally just watching the top half now without any expectations whatsoever for the matches. Like, it's just really popcorn stuff. It's really good, actually, despite not having like the high quality names and high quality, the sort of names that casual viewers will recognize. But I think that all of these matchups that we are sort of we still have in store are going to be quite exciting. Maybe the final would be that, if it's like Sabalenka on the other side of the net and someone from the top half comes in and can't compete, that's possible. But up until the final, I'm pretty sure everything we should get from here it should be pretty excellent.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of exciting matches still to come. My takes on this. The PC 360 in the live chat, is that Peter? I think it is Peter, although it might be Nick. They both have very familiar to me titles in the live chat. But anyway, so I think it's Peter, and great to have you on board today. Make sure you hit the like button, and everyone else here. Okay, so what was the story of this match? Well, Azarenka's serving, first serve percentage in terms of points won at the end of the first set, which went to a tiebreak, and I think it was 8-6 to Yastremska in that tiebreak, was 29% of points won. Hi, Peter, yeah. And yet it was something like 60 on second serve. Yesterday, she was just loving eating up for breakfast, as I think I described it earlier. The first serve, giving her the pace that she really enjoyed. She was going for it. And even the points that she did lose was often close. Like, I remember her hitting one return. I'm going, my goodness me, I think that's the best return I've seen all week. And then suddenly it was actually a couple of centimeters out. So that was one of the ones that she actually didn't win. But she was making an incredible impression on the Azarenka serve. And in fact, to such an extent that when it went to the tiebreak, she got a set point, her first set point, having already faced, I think, 2 or 3 on the Azarenka serve. And I was, sorry, in the tiebreak, but also when Azarenka was trying to serve it out, because she tried to serve it out twice. Keep up at the back, everyone. But I said in the commentary, I think to Jethro, I said, actually, I think Diana is looking forward to having a set point not on her serve, but actually on the Azarenka serve, because she'd also lost one on her own serve. And as soon as she got one on the Azarenka serve, that was it. She was either hitting a winner or just getting so far up in the rally as a result of the return of serve that it was just, Azarenka never felt comfortable. Until maybe there was a period at the beginning of the second set when I thought to myself, Azarenka goes off court, so does Yastremska, both for what probably would be a necessary change of clothing, of course, in Melbourne summer. And I thought, okay, listen, if Azarenka can get a couple of holds in, that might be enough for her to get back in the match and then go on to win it. She does exactly that. In fact, not even better than that, she also breaks and goes 3-love. So you're thinking, okay, not the set is done, but 2 holds feel almost like 2 breaks at that point, in a way, the fact that neither player was holding on to their serve. But then Yastremska just dials in again. And in fact, those 3 games, which included 2 holds, Azarenka would reverse that incredibly bad trend on the first serve. She was actually 100% across those first 2 games of points won on the first serve. But she couldn't keep up the momentum, and Diana came back and won the next 5 games. And that was pretty much it. But one final thing that I loved about this match, which I wanted to touch on earlier, because it may have been my favorite one of the day. You could talk about the Norrie Zverev match in a different way, but this one was probably a little bit more of a higher quality in terms of painting the lines in particular. Was that it was still uncertain, the result, even at 5-4, Yastremska serving 4. I think Azarenka got a hold in at 5-3 or 3-5, and I thought, okay, she stemmed the flow. Over to you, Diana. Can you serve this out? And she did, I think, to 15. And yeah, that was the story of the match. And whether she can keep this up, whether she can keep striking the ball this well, whether she'll get quite as many opportunities on the first serves of her upcoming opponents, I don't know. But yeah, deserved to be in the quarterfinals. I don't know if you want to react to anything I've just said, or we can just move on.
You can just move on, I think.
Yeah, fair enough. So, who is Yastremska playing in the final women's quarterfinal? Is it Svitolina or is it Noskova? I always need a few seconds sometimes to think. It's Noskova. And if you're just joining and you don't know what's been going on, you're going, wow, Noskova knocking out Svitolina. A little bit of a surprise. Surprise to me. I did tip Svitolina to win this. But of course, there's a bit of a twist and a tail to this. And unfortunately, it may even involve a slight twist of Svitolina's back, because unfortunately, a back injury, although I think it was a pulled muscle, where I think she mentioned in a press conference, basically, it just twinged, or whatever the word is, tweaked during the second game. And that was it. And she said it just locked and she just couldn't move. She got some treatment at the end of the second game. She then was visibly unable to barely move during the third game. And at 3-love down, that's it. Noskova goes through. Who knows? Maybe Noskova would have won the match fully fit, especially if she reproduced the form she showed against Iga. But I guess from the Svitolina point of view, Damien, I mean, it's a real pity, because draws don't always open up. Might be a slight exaggeration, but it was like, oh, hang on a second. Svitolina is maybe the favorite amongst all of these players. Maybe Azarenka, you could say, to get to that final. So it's, yeah, and she might not get a better opportunity to make a Grand Slam final. You just don't know in tennis.
Yeah, I don't know if it was Azarenka. I would probably say it's Svitolina. It was Svitolina or Zheng anyway. But it was close. It was close between all the players in the top half. I would say the draw definitely opened up. So to a point where like Svitolina would already consider this a pretty good opportunity. But probably we weren't deep enough in the event that this will be like, oh, this was my shot at a major. But yeah, of course, it's a shame for her to get that sort of injury. We sort of still have to like pass like the judgment on Noskova. We have to sort of postpone it until the quarterfinals, in the sense that, of course, she's a super talented player. I don't know if if this is the moment when she starts putting it together consistently, because that's really the only thing she needs. You know, she's so up and down. Last year, she makes a WTA Tour final in like Prague, and then she goes out to now Hibino in a horrible performance, even though on the way she was unbeatable. And then things like that happen to her all the time. she's still, recently at least, she has still been a little far away from, let's say, putting in 5 good performances in a row. It has only really happened for her at the top level, of course, last year around Australia as well, when she made that Adelaide final, then lost in the opening round of the Australian Open qualies to Kathleen Sebov. But yeah, we still have to just wait and see if this is the moment when she actually produces week in, week out, and is able to compete. It's not like this isn't it's not like this is out of nowhere as well, right? Because just before the Australian Open, she also had a deep run to the semifinals in one of the WTA 500s. So yeah, I'm excited to see what Noskova can produce with this in the future. But of course, Svitolina, that wasn't, the match never really happened.
It's an interesting headline, I think, because shot in the back, cruel, delicious, and chaos, all in the headline.
Sparks delicious Australian Open chaos.
Yeah, I wouldn't use that word delicious.
Yeah, the delicious is weird because it's a
it's
cruel injury and it sparks a delicious thing.
Exactly.
It's like the injury gives you something delicious. That's a little weird. Yeah.
But don't blame Toumani for this, because I think almost 100% of the time the headline is often written by an editor as opposed to the author. Maybe it's Toumani, in which case we can come for him. But
I think he might be in a position to write his own headlines.
No, I know, but it's not about seniority. I mean, he's obviously a senior writer, but I know how this process works. But The Guardian too, because I've seen journalists defend themselves on Twitter by going, "Don't shoot me because I didn't write the headline." He might have done, but just saying that I can't believe it. He would write that. I think some intern has written that, or some spider's gone across the keyboard and miraculously written a cohesive word in the word delicious. But yeah, but anyway, you get the idea.
Disastrous was the word, and then autocorrect.
Yeah, I mean, I shot in the back. That's fine. Then Svitolina's cruel injury sparks Australian Open chaos. That you can even make it even shorter, which is better, because you get, for the SEO purposes, you get Australian Open a bit closer to the beginning in that key 60-odd letter character count. But anyway, let's not bore the people with that, and let's get back to the tennis. Yeah, big shame, and 30 years old, I think she is. Hey, listen, she's pretty good across the 3 surfaces. She continues the form that she's shown in the last 9 months or so. She should be going deep at slams again, but the problem
29, so I guess you're not that far
29.
off. I was thinking 28 or 29.
The problem is going deep, and then you've got Iga in your way, or Elena, or Arena, or maybe even Qinwen Zheng is now going to become a thing. Or, of course, Barbora Krejcikova, of course, the one that you all want to avoid at all stages of the tournament. By the way, this is really funny, because, of course, I'm using this in an ironic way. It's only a year ago when I had her in the Australian Open final, and I was pretty big on her for probably the next 3 or 4 months, because despite her having an underwhelming Australian Open, she then goes and beats Iga on the way to winning Dubai.
Australia wasn't that underwhelming.
I thought it was 4th round, 3rd round.
Yeah, and she lost to Pegula, who was like truly peaking.
I agree, but when you've got her in the final, you've got her beating Pegula and several others.
Yeah, but like it was a very okay campaign. Like probably even positive rather than neutral.
Not positive to my final.
Not for you, but you already said that she's your girlfriend, so.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, I've got some competition now in Vanch, so.
That's true.
Yeah. I mean, just because he saw her win a match or 2 in San Diego, in fact, several matches, because she won the title. Anyway, unfortunate for Svitolina, and on we go. And the semi-finals are now set. Quarterfinals now are, of course, completely set for both tomorrow and the next day. I'm hoping to just bring them up. Here we go, just as a final thing on this. And I think they are all interesting. Which one is the least interesting? Is it Kostyuk Goff?
Or Krejcikova Sabalenka? One of them, yeah. I'm not sure.
So you just don't see a Kostyuk or Krejcikova making it super competitive and maybe even winning?
I'm more open to the idea of Kostyuk making it more competitive, mostly because she could make it competitive on her own merit. Whereas I feel like for Krejcikova Sabalenka to be competitive, something has to go wrong for Arena. And the only win that Krejcikova has against her was, of course, a comeback from I don't even remember, but she definitely lost the opening sets, love 6, and then the second was also, she was in a rough spot. Yeah, that's why I want to say that Kostyuk-Goff is the more competitive match to me, because Marta Kostyuk plays on her peak stuff there, and we might have a very good clash. Whereas Krejcikova, I don't know if I buy it right now.
Yeah, Kostyuk's win over Azarenka, which I'm not sure if it's the last round or the round before, was something I always felt was on Marta's racket, which was but that's maybe often the case against Azarenka. But there we go. Okay, cool. Let's move over to the men, and let's begin with the final male match of the day. I think it was involving Carlos Alcaraz and Miomir Kecmanovic. We actually had a question a little bit while ago, which I more or less addressed, but for someone who wasn't all over this match, because I was focusing on Norrie against Zverev at the same time. There was a question here from Marcus. Carlos versus Misha. Was Misha injured, especially in the third set? Someone let me know. I don't think there was any injury, was there?
Not really. Like if you are going to tell me that there was some slightly lesser intensity because of his 2 5-setters beforehand, yeah, probably. I don't think we saw like a super clear example of that, but still, I would assume so. And especially later on, I think it was just very easy for Alcaraz to dominate. But even in the first set, when Kecmanovic was maybe stepping into the court a little bit, taking more initiative, the athleticism of Alcaraz was just insane in getting all of these balls back. And Alcaraz just had a very good, like, free-flowing aggression performance. He was so loose from the get-go, going for ridiculous shots, making 90% of them. It was really one of the best performances from him recently, best performances of his recently. No breakpoints faced, I think, the entire match as well, unless there was one in the last game, which got a little competitive, but I don't think so. And yeah, it was really quite ridiculous from start to finish from Alcaraz. So I think Kecmanovic never really got a chance. Maybe it would have been more competitive if he wasn't coming off these 2 5-set clashes, but it's still not a great matchup for Miomir. I know about the Miami match, of course, 2022. It doesn't seem like he was able to like that peak Kecmanovic from that early spring 2022. It didn't really make an appearance here. However, of course, recently he's also been like playing above his usual quality, usual standards. So I thought that maybe he can keep it at least a bit tight. So probably a bit lower on the intensity on the gas tank, but no like visible, no apparent injury. No.
So Estoril and Davis Cup is not his usual standard?
No, definitely not. These were literally the 2 best events of his last year.
It's the last time we'll be doing that joke then for a while, because I've been doing it for a fair bit over the last 24 hours, but I think that's done now. I actually didn't think about the number 1 being up for grabs, which maybe I should have done, because Alcaraz obviously didn't play
Me
Australia.
neither, because I don't care about it, I suppose.
You know, I mean,
all of these players have been number 1, you know, so it's not.
Yeah, and it's not like someone's going to be overtaking Novak's record of weeks there. But anyway, some scenarios here on the screen. But for those of you listening as a podcast, I'll read them out. Carlos Alcaraz will be number 1 if he goes 1 match further than Djokovic at the event or beats Novak in the final. Medvedev will be number 1 if he wins the tournament.
He won't
and both
be.
Alcaraz and Djokovic losing the quarterfinals. Oh, of course, good news today for Stefanos Tsitsipas. Cam Norrie is not going to be winning the event and therefore ousting him from the top 10. And we'll come to Cam's result against Zverev shortly, or his match against Zverev. You obviously know the result now. Djokovic number 1 if all losing the quarterfinals, or if none of the above scenarios occur. Hopefully you keep up at the back. But yeah, basically most sort of really the main thing is
this is kind of redundant, by the way, because all lose in the quarterfinals, like that also is included in the, because the scenarios above also wouldn't happen then if all lose in the quarterfinals. So that all lose in the quarterfinals is actually redundant, but of course it doesn't really matter. It's just the purist in me.
Brenda Johnson suggesting a big difference between Carlos 22 and Carlos 24. Yeah, I think there's I mean, more significant is the difference between 22 and 23. Yeah. I mean, I want to see a bit more of 2024. My only concern is that 2024, latter stages of 2023. But yeah, I mean, Carlos himself said in sort of the spring and the summer last year that there'd been big steps forward. It may have been a bit of regression in that Cincinnati final in terms, just as an isolated thing, that he sort of slipped back into some sort of lack of concentration ways, which we did see a little bit against maybe Tsitsipas in Paris. Yeah, so that's something that I'm sure he's going to be keen to keep at bay. But yeah, anyway, number one is on the line, potentially if he can go further than Novak or beat him in the final. Okay, you told me the forehand was looking fine today, and you don't think it's as big an issue as some people are making out.
I don't see an issue with this shot whatsoever on the offense. Defensively, sure. He is like a little can't truly use that speed, that athleticism when he's just getting pushed like super hard and flat into the forehand. I think he's got ways to go there, but I don't see what sort of issue people would have with this on the attack. I mean, it's still one of the best shots in the game.
Fair enough. Alcaraz in the quarterfinal is going to be playing Alexander Zverev because Zverev beat Cam Norrie in 5 sets today. What to say about this match? I joined it, I think, around about the 3rd set. You joined it, I know, in the 5th. As you touched upon as well, some of the stats telling us, particularly in the 5th set, where Cam was really trying to up the ante. Could have gone either way, but then the tiebreak, Cam just fell apart.
Yeah, pretty much. A few maybe minor missed chances on the way to the 5th set tiebreak, but nothing crazy. It wasn't like match point close or anything, maybe just a 15-30 that he could have gotten instead of a 13-30-15. But yeah, it was the same Norrie from the Ruud matchup, almost overcoming another tough opponent, another tough rivalry dynamic for him, with just being a little more, playing with a little more conviction, just attacking a bit more, just a more sort of free mindset and just, yeah, swinging at it. Definitely more than Zverev, who was tentative as hell in the 5th set. And as usual, on the forehand side, he tends to push, until he basically cannot really win any other way. But, well, anyway, it was a bit of a physical slog. Norrie won a lot of good points in the 5th set with drop shots. So it's not that surprising that the tiebreak, he tries to do that again, but he like overplays it a touch at the very beginning, and then a double fault for 2-6, and the set is kind of gone. And it wasn't even Zverev getting all these 3 points on serve in the tiebreak, because he wasn't. Like, it wasn't one of these tiebreaks. So yes, Zverev survives another 10-point tiebreak, second of the event. And I have to say that, like, by this moment, like by the time we got here, he was kind of BSing his way through some of the rounds, definitely. Now this is the time where he will actually need to like step up and start hitting through his weaker shot, or like actually his shot that he's least confident in. Weaker still than his backhand, but like it's not really that big a gap as he makes it out to be sometimes. So yeah, I mean, he's not going to escape against this Alcaraz if he's going to play like against Norrie today. If he's going to be as scared, he's not going to make it.
But I think actually in a way, it's almost a free hit for Sasha.
That's why he might be feeling it differently. Yeah, that's why he might just enter the match with a very different mindset. Yeah, absolutely. Like, it is possible. Like, right now, he's done what he was expected to. So the first 4 rounds, which is literally where after the draw, you just land him there. After the United Cup, you feel like, okay, so he usually loses some matches or some sets left and right at the beginning of the event, but he's likely making the quarters. After that, everything else is a bit of a bonus. And definitely with his top 10 records at slams, he's still so far away from winning this whole thing. I mean, beating Alcaraz, then Medvedev or Hurkacz, and then Djokovic or Sinner, that's really something that Zverev has never shown us at the Grand Slam stages. So he really needs to go all out. And if he does, who knows, maybe actually an opportunity can pop up at least to win 1 match or maybe even more. But I don't know if I trust he'll do it.
Yeah, I don't envisage any sort of scenario where Zverev wins this tournament. This can be trimmed up and put on the internet if he does win the tournament in a few days from now. But I can see a one-off occasion where he does beat Alcaraz, despite him struggling and coming through these 5-set matches. And physically, he seems fine. He wasn't struggling. Neither player was struggling really in the 5th set.
Yeah.
It was a fairly swiftish 5 set. It was less than 4 hours anyway. I'm pretty sure about that. And the 5th set
I think
tiebreak.
it actually went over 4 in the 5th set
Did it?
tiebreak,
Okay.
or just before the 5th set tiebreak. Yeah.
As Peter says in the live chat, though, it was Cam Norrie. I think he might have got to 2-1 or 2-2 or something, and then just didn't win another point thereafter. Or it might have got 10-3, but it was just demoralizing for Cam.
The double fault for 2-6 was over. Like, he was 2-5 down, he had 2 serves, and he double faults, and like 2-6, it felt over, and it kind of was.
And he'd hit 1 double fault in the entire match, which is incredible, I think, for almost 5 sets. In fact, 5 sets plus, because it was a deciding set tiebreak. And then he goes and hits 1 during the tiebreak. And I know it's clever in hindsight, but I saw him going for that second serve, and I just looked at his face, and it did sort of look sort of drained, is the best way I could describe it. And he then hits the double fault. But it wasn't just that point. There were others where it was like, he's hitting the ball a bit short here. Zverev punished him with a backhand down the line. I think Alexander started to feed off that anxiety on the side of the net as well. A couple of unforced errors as well. And just unfortunately for Cam that he'd possibly been the better player for certainly that 5th set. And yet, unfortunately, he'll regret some of what happened in that tiebreak. Okay, nice little stat there regarding the fewest unforced errors on the men's side.
It doesn't make sense because Alcaraz beat Zheng 6-1, 6-1, 1-0 retirement. It was a very short match, so if you want to do it like in any reasonable way, it would have to be unforced errors per game or even per point, because per game also doesn't give you everything, because of course games can last from 4 points to 25, and you actually, 25 actually is impossible, I guess, now that I think of it, but 26 or 24. But
I mean, imagine if, let's just imagine a world which probably doesn't exist anywhere in all paradigms, but if Zverev had hit, so I think he's on 83, isn't he, Alcaraz? Imagine that Zverev had hit 87. Zverev's would be infinitely better than Alcaraz's 83, going in the number of sets and games that Zverev would have had to have come through. And again, same with this one, really.
Sabalenka and Goff, I mean, they're the only players who have been battling through their first few rounds without losing many games. So, this doesn't really tell you all that much.
No, they're just playing pretty well, and we already know that because they're in the quarterfinals. Okay, so that is one pair of matches on the men's side. What else did we have? Oh, your compatriot, who'll be Hurkacz. Somebody, who was that? Predicted Hurkacz to win in straight sets. Oh, hello. It was me. And 7-6, 7-6, of course, a couple of tie breaks followed by, was it 6-4 in the third?
Or 6-3, one of these anyway.
One break,
anyway. Doesn't really matter. I mean, Hurkacz in straights was a weird prediction to me. I still feel like it was weird. But indeed, whenever it came to the crunch, Hurkacz was just getting it so much easier in the tie breaks when it comes to the 3 points on serve. He actually played a phenomenal second set tiebreaker. I know he double faulted in it, but he still won 7-3, and like some of the forehands that he was hitting were actually quite monstrous. Sometimes you can see the power, of course, on the Hurkacz forehand from time to time, but he sort of needs to be very wary, pick his spots, pick his battles. This time he was actually finding the opportunities all the time. A couple of tough smashes as well, especially the one from the baseline after a long rally. And he kind of didn't give Kazo a chance in either of these tiebreaks, despite losing the 2 set points in the first set tiebreak. So actually he kind of did, but Kazo made a horrific unforced error at 6-all in the first set tiebreak, and that's really when it went wrong for him. Then he also had some issues at the beginning of the third. I'm not sure what they were physically, but he did recover from that after a few games. He was very intense, right, like later, but he started running all over the court again. He started having that intensity and fighting for the break back, but he was never able to secure it. In general, he never really won too many points on the Hurkacz serve. I think it was like maybe 15 in the entire match. So it was kind of as easy for Hurkacz as a 7-6, 7-6, 6-4 match can get. Because, well, maybe the first set tiebreak, if it was finished at that 7-4 point, then yes. But it did feel fairly routine, despite the scoreline being so close, and despite Kazo also not getting broken, well, only once in the third set. Actually, they broke each other, at the beginning of the first set, but it didn't matter because it was like traded, and that didn't make a big deal of difference. But of course, it was actually fairly routine for the scoreline that was there and for like how well they were playing in their own service games in general. And I guess for Hurkacz, this is something that he exactly needed this year. Finally get to a Grand Slam, to a major quarterfinal on hard courts, finally get to another quarterfinal after Wimbledon 2021, is it? Yeah, 2021. And basically just make it look routine, make it look comfortable, make it look easy. Because I think despite the 5-setter against Menchik, where clearly in the 4th and 5th set, I mean, it was just clear that he was going to win because Menchik had nothing left, he still made it look relatively safe all the way to the quarters. And maybe the draw opened up a touch. He didn't have to play Rune. But all in all, this was also a draw of some very dangerous opposition, like Menchik, like Umber, like Kazo. They all serve great. So they might be tough opponents for Hurkacz on a given day, given that, well, he plays so many tie breaks and basically the matches are so serve return based. But all in all, this is like precisely what he wanted. And he also gets a matchup that he was always relatively comfortable with compared to the class of the opponent.
He's not the favorite, though, against Medvedev, is he?
I treat it as a 50-50. I haven't seen the odds, but Medvedev will be the favorite for the market for sure.
But you treat it 50-50 because of history,
history and just in general, Hurkacz has a pretty good top 10 record. Against any player with a serve like this, you can make a match close. And against any player, really, Hubert Hurkacz can make a match close, even if the player is worse than him, or if he's better than him. Like a big server against a fellow big server, although maybe more oriented in, more baseline oriented, more counter punching oriented. But then again, Hurkacz is also a pretty similar style, right? A big serve and then maybe more so defensively oriented off the ground, but of course he can maybe step it up a little bit more than Daniil off the ground. Then again, of course, he's not that good a defender. But yeah, these Hurkacz, Medvedev, Zverev type of guys, it's really close between them, I think. And at the same time, any match with a big server can be closer than it seems, right? Because it's just such a style that basically gives the opponent no rhythm. You're probably, most of the time, they are pretty weak on return, like Hurkacz is, great on serve. I don't really see a big edge there for Medvedev. But I do understand that when it comes to the odds, when it comes to the betting market, Medvedev has to be a favorite.
And according to our viewers who have voted at the moment, have Medvedev at 67% and Hurkacz at 33%. So do get voting there. Also, if you're watching retrospectively and not able to vote in that poll, let us know in the comment section below how you see that match panning out and anything else that we've been discussing today. And the reason he's playing, of course, Daniil Medvedev is because Medvedev beat Borges in 4 sets. Some might be surprised that he struggled a bit. Of course, he was serving for the match in the 3rd set, but didn't get over the line. Borges did really well to win, I think, 4 games in a row, because I think it was something like 5-3 to then end up being 7-5. The drop shot became an issue for Medvedev, as it occasionally can be in the past. And funny enough, after the match, he mentioned how people had been trying the drop shot on him in Miami, having seen what Alcaraz had been doing to him in Indian Wells. And in fact, in Miami, he said he was onto it a lot more and he managed to use perhaps his speed to chase down some of those drop shots that he saw coming. And of course, in Miami, he didn't play Alcaraz, so that helps a little bit. But perhaps the surface speed there is a little bit more favorable for Medvedev than Indian Wells. But anyway, there we go. Any thoughts on that 4-set win for Medvedev?
Not really. I mean, it was a brief sort of, detour from the original route, let's call it that. But of course, eventually didn't end up mattering at the end. Nice for Nuno to take a set, though. This is, of course, his best ever run. He's actually now 0-10 in round of 16 matches at tour level. Still looking for his first quarterfinal, but of course, getting to a Grand Slam 4th round is like better than an ATP 250 quarterfinal. So it's only really a meaningless stat at this point, I think. But, well, it's something to look at going forwards, because it's a bit weird that he hasn't made that since. Even before this run, it was weird. But yeah, it's pretty. It's an amazing run for him for sure. I'm excited to see how he does with this newfound confidence and how he takes it to the tour in the upcoming weeks. Certainly, I feel like, yes, an event like Indian Wells, for example, which you just mentioned, this is something where Borges could shine easily. And when it comes to Medvedev, he's had some patchy moments along the way. The first set against Atmane, he completely blew it. Here, a little less. So I don't know what this really speaks about him going forward. I think to see him beat Alcaraz and then Djokovic or Sinner is a bit of fantasy for now. And
You mean
Hurkacz is
Medvedev?
also not a throwaway. So
You mean, yeah, Medvedev now is going to have to go through.
If he has to beat Alcaraz and then Djokovic or Sinner, it kind of seems almost impossible to me at the moment. So
I mean, Hurkacz, which, okay, you're putting it 50-50, others might say 60-40, but wherever you land on that scale, and I'm probably slightly more towards 60-40 in Medvedev's favor, the odds stack up. You know, even if you had 4 60-40s in your favor, that probably means you're going to lose one of them, because eventually, never mind the fact that he's obviously not the favorite against Alcaraz, if he plays Alcaraz, if he plays Zverev. And if he plays Zverev, of course, we'll all be very pumped for that one, won't we?
Oh, no. I just realized that this is a possibility.
It is a possibility.
If one of them, who's we don't know who's playing next, who's playing first to
No, although I saw somebody in the chat, and you
should
probably,
be.
I think it's Matthew saying it will be first up in the night session.
Should be Should be
Zverev
Alcaraz in the night session and Medvedev Hurkacz in the day session, right?
Yeah.
That's what it will be for sure. Now that I think of it. So I guess if Medvedev beats Hurkacz, then we're all going to be rooting for Alcaraz, like hardcore rooting for Alcaraz, just not to get Medvedev Zverev again. Holy hell, what a horrible matchup that is.
There's a good YouTube clip out there already, which I saw happening live when Jim Courier spoke to Medvedev after the match with Borges, and they just talked through and even took that part of the court to explain some of Medvedev's tactics and his return position, and that's where he highlighted this drop shot issue against Alcaraz in Indian Wells, and to a much lesser extent in Miami when facing other opponents. But equally interesting are some of these comments from Nuno Borges afterwards, maybe just sort of adding to what we maybe already knew, but I still think it's interesting. Medvedev doesn't overpower you, the Portuguese said. He doesn't hit winners every point, but he drains you, makes you feel desperate and play worse than usual, which even Novak Djokovic has kind of touched upon in the past. Tactical changes to face Medvedev on this particular issue. Borges says, I usually don't use the drop shot as much as today, but against Medvedev, that's a good idea. So I used the drop shots and went to the net much more than usual to push him further. And he did so to some success, which is, I think, what helped him win that third set. Otherwise, he probably ends up with a straight set loss. Very happy with his run. He said he had a rough couple of weeks before coming here. And I'm in the second week. So I'm not quite sure. Proud of myself and the way I work. If I'm good mentally and feeling well, I know I can do things. This is now my favorite. Slam. Thinks he's got to improve. I will not change to lefty or start playing serve volley, but I need to improve on every aspect, says Borges. Well, good tournament for him, at least. And maybe he can have a nice little run in Estoril. Him and Kecmanovic can have
finally that first quarterfinal. Nuno had a big breakthrough in Estoril 2 years ago, beating Thompson, losing to Cilic in a great match. Didn't he win it in doubles though with Francisco Cabral?
I left Estoril on the Saturday this past year, just gone.
I mean, he's pretty much had that phenomenal pairing with Francisco Cabral, and they're like childhood friends. But of course, when Nuno became this good in singles already, then he kind of had to give up on the doubles. But in 2023, they were able to. 2022, they won Estoril in doubles. Yeah.
Do hit the like button if you are with us right now, or even if you're watching later, and make sure you subscribe if you haven't done so already. I don't think we're going to make 6,000 subscribers by the end of the Australian Open unless something very, very strange happens, and that's that Novak Djokovic, Rafa Nadal, Billie Jean King, and Pete Sampras all give me a call saying that they'd like to come on the channel in the next few days. Failing that, I don't think we're going to make 6K subs, but we'll never know. Just so make sure you do hit the subscribe button. Gene here is very, very big on Hubi's chances, saying even more so that during the day will make Hubi's serve even more lethal.
Yeah.
So he is all over lethal, all over Hubi, and therefore going for a
But
Carlos.
Medvedev likes it faster too, so it's not that obvious. Actually, if they were playing like middle through the night, then I would like Hurkacz chances more. I don't know. It's not clear. It's not clear. And it comes
Both
to the
of them will be
conditions.
quite fresh. I know that both have dropped sets on the way here, but the immediate match prior not being too taxing, and Medvedev said he was relieved that it didn't go to a fifth set. I know he had that super late night thing, but again, he kind of said that I'm over that now. It's a few days ago, so things are at least back in sync for him. The mental aspect favors. Yes, that's true. That's true, right? Mental aspect favors Medvedev.
Really? I mean, he's been pretty weird with that this Australian Open. I don't know. But yeah, Hurkacz, of course, has had some big wins that he couldn't produce because of that. So
also the United Cup against against Zverev recently. Yeah, I mentioned that earlier. It was a match he should have won. But different pressures, of course, when you're playing individually as opposed to a nation. Sometimes better, actually, and easier. Sometimes not. Okay, we're coming up to the hour mark. I think we're just about done. There's not a match we've missed. That would be dreadful.
No.
When there's so few happening now. Oh, one more thing I did want to mention is that basically, I hope, this is not a promise, but I hope we are able to cover every single singles match for the rest of the tournament. And of course, that begins in a few hours' time with Coco Gauff against Marta Kostyuk. So do join us for all of those watch-alongs that we have throughout the day and night, wherever you are in the world, wherever you're tuning in from, because we'll have these 4 quarterfinals that are coming up on day 10, but we'll also have the following 4 on the next day and so on and so forth. You get the idea. So Coco Gauff, Marta Kostyuk will be up first, which I think is about 1:30 a.m. GMT, and you can all work it out from there. And then following that will be Djokovic Fritz in the daytime. And yeah, just no excitement there from Damien, and I can understand that lack
tomorrow
of
might be a very boring day of tennis. Like, there is a high chance that it happens. However, of course, there's also a lot of doubles coming up. For example, the phenomenal Zheng pairing taking on Behar Pavlashek. There's the mixed doubles quarterfinals tomorrow, I believe, as well. There's a lot of junior action too. I think it's the remaining part of the second round in the juniors tomorrow in singles.
Is the Sigmund-Siniakova clash happening tomorrow?
That's going to be on Wednesday.
Oh, okay, it's the next day. But anyway, it's definitely happening. Okay, that's good to know because yeah.
Krejcikova-Siniakova is like maybe the better way to describe it, but yeah. It will be a Zygmunt-Siniakova as well. Yeah, sure.
Gene, really? Are you asking that? Gene's only asking that because, of course, when you're a fan of one particular player, and I know how it is as well, yeah, exactly. He's a bit scared, of course. I get it. I get it. When you're so invested in when you were invested in Federer like you used to be, and for the rest of the world, we're going, yeah, he's easily going to win this match. You were like, well, yeah exactly.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, Taylor, I think he has a shot only if he comes out with like this really great swing freely attitude, just like he played against Tsitsipas, but it's way tougher against Novak. Also needs to like serve out of his mind. I don't see the issue with that one. I really don't. I think Rublev and Sinner is similarly going to be similarly uncompetitive.
Fritz listen, this is not, I don't find the match interesting either. I won't find it interesting unless Fritz goes up 2-0 and a double break in the third. But he was so bad in the quarterfinal at the US Open last year that
so
was
like
also,
like I have PTSD after the final, you have PTSD after the quarters, and you cannot.
I have both. I have both because the final wasn't. Yeah, but Fritz was so bad, and that tells you that he had chances in rallies where he was up in the rally and then would just blow that. To be that bad, you have to be in. It's not like so. For example, Djokovic semi-final and final in Turin. I'm not using those words to describe Alcaraz or Sinner's performances in those 2 matches. Djokovic was just insane. Djokovic was below average in that quarterfinal. Djokovic was that day was beatable by
I have my issue with this because he didn't need to do anything. Like he would have stepped up if it was necessary. Like against Fritz, you cannot beat Djokovic by playing like one-dimensional linear power at him. Like it's just impossible. It's impossible. And Fritz does this 8 times in a row. Probably even gets the wrong signal when he plays him at the Australian Open, and of course he wins 2 sets when Djokovic has that abdominal tear. And the moment we see him sort of trying something else, I will be okay with it. However, it's also not in his arsenal. Like this is what he is, a pretty one-dimensional, very good ball striker, not too great on the athleticism. And I just don't see how that sort of game troubles Djokovic. I think it's been years since Djokovic lost to a player like this.
Indeed. All right, 1 hour, dead on the hour pretty much. So let's call it a day or a night, depending on where you're tuning in from. Thanks for stopping by today, Damien, and everyone else as well. And,
thanks for stopping by for like 8 hours.
Yeah, right. It's not just the last hour, but it's been 2 matches, I think, wasn't it? In the end, you did, and 8 hours regularly in the last few or 10 days or so, 4 to 8 hours. You could even go back further because I think we did quite a lot of matches in that Brisbane week. It's been a hectic few weeks, but it is coming down to this last sort of stretch now with all the quarterfinals set in stone, and I'm looking forward to some of them. The 2 women's ones I think could be interesting, and I think if Rublev does get up in the match, that's kind of what we need for that one to be interesting. I wasn't far away from exaggerating with Fritz. Fritz could win the first 2 sets, and I'm not thinking much unless it goes to a 3rd set tiebreak or something like that. But if Rublev gets in front,
you are exaggerating a bit.
Listen, Fritz could win the first 2 sets, and I'll be like, oh, okay, I'm going to tune in. I'm going to tune into the 3rd set.
But you were tuned in already, You were tuned in.
Yeah, I'm tuned in. I'm not tuned in with any great expectation. But I would tune in and be thinking, okay, this is interesting. If Rublev got up in the scoreboard, like say he's up a break in the first set, he wins the first set. Yeah, then I'm thinking, okay, this could be interesting.
He wins the first set, and maybe we have a conversation.
Yeah. Shrihuri, hi. I don't think that's the Shrihuri. I think it's a different one, but I could be wrong. Actually, the space
I think
thing there.
It is this Shrihari. It's his surname.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's just changed his picture. Great to see you too, or to hear from you in the live chat. And please do hit the like button and all that other stuff. All right. Don't worry, Gene. Just chill. And it is indeed Shrihuri. Probably Shrihuri and Gene, as fellow Novak fans, can go off and start panicking about Taylor Fritz, or maybe one can comfort the other. That might help. Anyway, cool. All right. Thanks, Tennis World, for stopping by, and you know the drill. Oh, the drill for me, by the way, is sleep. Anyway, the rest of the drill is this.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.